They blew each other and one of them shoved the drumstick up his ass. Ask Reddit on Reddit Rundown. NSFW. What is the most disrespectful thing someone did in your house? Roommate's friend brought her dog over for the weekend while she stayed with us. She said it was her emotional support animal. Dog took a dump in my room and the friend refused to clean it up. Needless to say, I informed my roommate she was not welcomed back. A girl I knew was keeping an eye on my cats and feeding the 2 fish while my girlfriend and I were on vacation. Before we left, we filled up the cat's large water bowl. It's the kind that has a reservoir, so we really only need to refill it about once a week, and we fully cleaned both of the fish tanks. When we got home, the cat's water bowl was completely dry and knocked over on the floor. Both fish tanks were filled with food. My betta tank had a battery pack in it and he later died. She came in the door with another girl. They had been at our apartment pool, while we were standing there in disbelief. Still gets me fired up every once in a while. I was going to pay her but absolutely not after that, lol. Yanked my blinds off the wall hard enough to break them and didn't apologize. My mom has an issue with blinds. She doesn't seem to understand the concept that you need to pull the string down and not away from the window if you want to raise them. As a consequence, blinds in her house have a pretty limited lifespan, often less than a year if it's one she opens frequently, since she's so rough with them. The blinds in my house were already a bit dodgy when I bought it and I warned her that she needed to be gentle, but she insisted on violently pulling on the cord hard enough to bring them crashing down. If she'd done it once and apologized, that would be fine, but she did it every time she came over. I pointed out to her that the blinds no longer open since she'd pulled them off the wall and that pulling on the cord would literally just pull them off the wall, and her response was basically that I should repair them. I actually put off repairing them for several years, since I rarely cared about opening them anyway, in hopes of making the point to her that she should be gentle with blinds, especially when they are other people's property, but I don't think she ever got the message. I did eventually replace the blind but got ones without a cord to make it harder for her to damage them. Me and 2 of my brothers were hanging out drinking at my house when I was around 18. I went to bed and they stayed up. When I got up the next day, my one friend told me to throw away one of my drumsticks. Found out a few days later that they blew each other and one of them shoved the drumstick up his ass. They both had girlfriends at the time. My wife tended to a tomato plant, one single tomato plant, for weeks to get one bud. She cultivated it, pruned it, watered it, everything. Just as it was getting to be picked, we had movers there and one ate it. Actually, he ate half and threw away the second half. 20 years later, I still think that my wife will kill that man if she saw him today. This happened to my sister and I when we were little. My parents had a huge yard that was very well kept along with a large fish pond. One day after school there was a knock on the door and my sister and I were home alone. Obviously we hid and peeked out the windows instead of answering the door. We watched 2 little only ladies wander into our strawberry patch that we had been taking care of and pick the one strawberry that had another day or so left until it would have been perfectly ripe. My little sister had been waiting so long for that strawberry that she grew herself. We watched these women walk through the entire yard and spend about 20 minutes just sitting and chatting on our furniture overlooking the pond like they owned the place. People are absolutely unbelievable. Friend of a friend stayed at my place and helped me build a fence over a few days. Then on the last night he took a bunch of acid and things took a weird turn. He cycled between threatening to attack me and trying to jerk off in front of me and my wife. Nice fence, but I would be hesitant to recommend them to a friend. 6th grade, 1992-ish. A friend of mine had to take a shit and I guess there wasn't enough toilet paper left on the roll. He decided to wipe his ass on our bath towels and stuff it behind the sink. Never hung out with him again. My mom from then on would refer to him as shitty. Years ago, a kid in school used to host parties all the time as his parents were always away on weekends. It was great, being 16, always having somewhere to go and get shit-faced, until someone took a shit in his kettle and we were never invited back. Apparently shit, when boiled, creates loads of nasty shitty foam that escapes the kettle, takes over the kitchen and leaves a stink for weeks. A friend and his girlfriend came over for a few drinks and to just hang out. She went into the bathroom almost as soon as she got there and stayed in there for over an hour. I only had one bathroom at the time, so this was a big inconvenience for a bunch of drinking dudes. When she finally came out, we found that she had scavenged all the loose change laying around and had been smoking what we later found out was crack. When I told my friend what happened, he was super embarrassed and left with her immediately. We later found some of her crack wrapped in a foil gum wrapper and tossed it. My friend said she had forgot something and threw a fit when he wouldn't bring her back to get it. I invited a good high school friend and my boyfriend at the time to Hanukkah dinner with my family. The boyfriend was fine, but the friend was acting like my parents were our age and started doing stupid shit like deep-throating bananas and alluding to choking on a cock and throwing up. My parents kept politely asking him to tone it down, but he wouldn't. Eventually my dad lost his shit and yelled "Stop it!" and told him to get the fuck out. I have never cringed harder in my entire life. A friend was over with her husband and their 2 young children. They were here to meet my new baby. Their kids both were running and wrestling in the living room, and they knocked my drink off of my end table all over and onto the magazines I had below it. I asked her if I could get her a towel and she says to me, "They already know they're grounded when they get home. They don't clean up there, either." I cleaned her own damn kid's mess in my own house. She wasn't kidding about them destroying their own house. Up high as they could reach was a band of crayon scribbles all along the rooms in every single room in that house. My parents host a big 4th of July party every year. A couple hundred people usually attend, except this year of course. Last year, my mom spots a young-looking girl asking for drinks and vape hits from randoms. She had been lying inconsistently about her age, and was sloppy drunk. We tried to find out who she was and where she came from for a while, until eventually figuring out she was a distant relative that had been adopted by her grandmother, my great-aunt, from her parents. Don't know the exact details. I assume her birth parents weren't great. When we confronted her guardian with her behavior, her attitude wasn't so. We had to pester them for half an hour and physically escort them back to their car to make them leave. The girl who had variously said she was 18, 20, 22, and other ages actually turned out to be 12. I've got a mate who hooked up with a chick who wanted to try anal for the first time. He went into the bathroom to freshen up after, when all of a sudden, he hears her leave the hotel room. When he came out, he was struck by a godawful smell. He followed his nose, lifted back the bed sheets, and found the source. Basically, the girl had not prepared herself for anal, had explosive diarrhea all over the bed, fucking wiped her butt on the sheets, and fled in shame. It's our favorite story to remind him of, and we have had to train ourselves not to laugh whenever we see her in town. Edit. Since there's quite a few comments about what the prep would have exactly been, I'll present our theory. Whilst I am by no means an expert, or even novice, the best that we could come up with is that she already had a certain level of fullness in her bowels. Most people would think to maybe go poop if you need to, but then again this is someone who thought wiping her bum on the bed sheets was a good idea. Whatever was inside her got milkshaked, and once the banging stopped, well there she blows. Not exactly in my house, but close. Had a large fig tree in the backyard of my house. Rented the house out to a bunch of college girls one year while I house sat for my girlfriend's place. Her dad was a college offensive coordinator and ended up leaving for a job with a different school, and they couldn't unload the house just yet. They eventually sold their house. We moved back into my house, which, amazingly enough, now did not have a fig tree in the backyard. Mother effers uprooted and stole the fig tree. On his first visit, a friend of a friend came to my house. He is around 150 kilograms, sits down in my extra gaming chair and pulls the pin so it tilts backwards, grabs each handle and starts bouncing so it lifts off the carpet a few times. You could hear the chair nearing its limits. I ask him what he is doing. He looks at me and says, "Chill bro, I was just testing the springs." I told my friend not to take him over ever again. Some of you might think it was harsh, but I could feel he is like this with everything. I was 17 and hanging out with my friends on a Saturday night, then I came home after 2 a.m. and there was a random 15-year-old kid in my room. Turns out him and his mom came over and talked to my dad about something that morning. The kid knew that I had a computer in my room and he wanted to play video games, so he snuck away from the adults and hid in my room for over 16 hours. My parents both went to work and came home, had dinner, and went to bed without knowing he was there. I walked into my room wearing a towel at first because I didn't know he was there. When I asked him to leave, he refused. He was bigger and stronger than me. So I had to wake up my parents. He still refused to leave. We called his mom. He still refused. He waited another hour until he was satisfied with his gameplay, then casually walked out without saying a word. That messed up my parents' sleep before they had to go to work the next day. He also scared the shit out of me. I didn't know who this kid was and had never seen him before. It made me feel violated to have someone see me in my room without clothes on. That's my private space. Apparently, his mom knew he was going to sneak into my room, but didn't stop him because he really wanted to play. A girl peed in my bong. One time I had a party, and a very drunk girl was upset she wasn't getting attention. In the middle of a room with like 15 people in it, she was wearing a skirt and starting peeing in my bong from above it. Like crouching above it and just straight up peeing in it, didn't even budge or was fazed. Everyone was in shock. Edit, she's actually currently a news anchor and every time I see her, I just can't help but think, dude, you peed in my bong. Had some friends that studied in another city at my place. They brought some other friends, I only knew one, no big deal, seemed okay for an evening. We drank, we went to a club together, I left earlier than the others. A taxi stops by my place and it turns out that the two least sympathetic dudes did not have a place to crash, the others just sent them my way with a third guy I knew and respected. I agreed after their promise to, A, not cause any mess and, B, do not disturb my flatmate. Guess what happens? One keeps me awake with his requests if and how he can score with my flatmate, until I outright threatened him. Dude was a soldier, took me some guts to do that. Went to sleep, woke up from a splashing sound, saw the other dude standing in front of my desk, pissing on the carpet. Got up, gave him a proper shouting, sent his drunk ass to go get toilet paper right now so he can clean it up himself. Guess what he does? Forgot where the bathroom door was and stumbled right into my flatmate's room. Her scream brought that to my attention. Threw them out. 4 a.m. Freezing cold outside, I don't give a crap anymore. Third guy apologizes profusely, hands me some cash for cleaning supplies, they leave. Edit, update for clarification, the soldier looking to score and the carpet urinator were separate persons, some might have mixed that up. After my 21st birthday party, I woke up in my bedroom to a naked stranger sitting on the floor beside my bed, rolling a joint. This did not seem inherently disrespectful, but I did inform him that it was definitely time to leave, as I had never seen him before in my life. He was pretty chill, and handed me my video camera, this was in early 2000, before smartphones, and told me he got some great footage of the party. The entire recording was just various shots of him peeing. Sometimes in the bathroom, sometimes not. The audacity. Someone I considered my friend came back from Korea after being gone 6 months. I was excited to see him. Dude gets pissed drunk right before I go meet up with him and some other friends. He's passing out in the bar and the doorman wants us to take him away. My other friends want to keep partying, so their plan is to leave him in my car and go back to the bar. I know that's a bad idea, so I decide to take him back to my place and let him sleep it off. Dude was an obnoxious, uncooperative child, but I finally got him to sleep. I went to sleep on my couch. He wakes me up the next morning wearing some of my clothes. He had pissed all over my bed. He didn't offer to help clean it up, he just sat down on my recliner and started watching my Netflix. He stayed at my house the whole day, he helped himself to my food without asking. I think I put up with it because I was telling myself he was my friend and I was just thinking I'll just ghost this dude once he leaves. Turns out, he had just planned to stay at my house for another night, he had no other place to stay. I said fuck that and drove him an hour away to one of the houses of our mutual friends who he had come to town with. That's the last time I saw him because I snapped out of it and realized how selfish he really was all along. He's now a full-blown hippie and not the good kind. He does a ton of psychedelics, lives with his mom, and does a video blog where he full-on thinks he's like a shaman guru. Dude's brain is fried. He's an anti-vaxxer and tells his followers that philosophers such as himself don't have to worry about COVID. FUJB, I never got your piss stain out of my mattress. Thanks for listening to Reddit Rundown, give a thumbs up and subscribe, and help me get to 1,000 subs. Leave a comment below on what kind of topics or stories you would like to hear. You can also check out other videos on my channel. Thanks and have an awesome day.